Hi everyone. Well, today I want to talk to you about something that's very important, and it's a really major issue here in Australia. If you're from overseas, you may not know a lot about this. I want to talk to you about Stephen Conroy, who is an Australian politician who is behind a plan to censor the internet for Australians using a mandatory ISP-level internet filter. Now, essentially how this filter will work is that the government will be able to establish a blacklist of websites that it considers to be inappropriate or things that have been refused classification by the Australian government's classification board, and we'll basically stop people from accessing it by making the ISPs censor that information. Now, this is a terrifying idea, mainly because for two reasons. One, the Australian government would have absolutely the main control over it without any form of public consultation, without any kind of oversight committee. Basically, they would be the ones making the decisions alone. The other terrifying part of this is that they will be able to do all of this in complete and total secrecy. They won't have to justify it, they won't have to publicly announce it, they'll just turn around and decide what they believe to be inappropriate and then add it to the blacklist, and no one will ever know until they try to access something. Or the fact is they won't be able to access it. Now, the whole idea behind this is that they want to try and stop child pornography and people accessing terrorist information like how to make bombs and stuff like that, all of which are very noble ideas, and I entirely support the concept of reducing this kind of stuff on the internet. People should not really have access to that kind of information and material. The problem is, this whole plan does not work. The filter will not cover the areas where most of this activity occurs. This basically only applies to open websites, URLs, things like that. However, things like child pornography are mostly accessed via instant messaging services, private networks, peer-to-peer services, email, all of that stuff, none of which are covered by this mandatory ISP-level internet filter. Now, the government is continually trying to convince people that this is the best plan, we have to do this, we have to save the children, all of this sort of stuff, despite the fact that there is mounting opposition towards it. There is a lot of people out there who have, using basic information off the internet themselves, have determined that this plan is completely unworkable and will not work. And it's so open to corruption. I mean, you cannot tell me that once this plan is in place, this government or future governments won't be using this kind of secret top-level censorship to vanquish their political rivals by blocking out websites to, say, opposing political parties or people who are speaking out against the current government. That is a really terrifying idea to give this kind of power to people who are supposed to be our elected officials. Stephen Conroy has even gone as far as to attack Google, complaining that they have attempted to steal sensitive and financial information from the Australian public using its Street View collection vehicles. Now, anyone with even the most basic information about how the internet works and how wireless networks works, it's just astounding that anyone who's supposedly in charge of all of these things doesn't have the slightest clue how they work. To begin with, he's talking about how unsecured networks, people could steal their banking information and all this sort of stuff. First of all, any legitimate banking institution that has internet banking facilities on their website uses SSL encryption technology. That basically means that any information that happens during a transaction is encrypted or scrambled. So anyone who tries to intercept that information en route gets nothing but basically gibberish. Now, in the event that Google was actually accessing wireless internet networks while passing by using the Street View vehicles, it's highly unlikely that any information that they would have picked up would have been anything useful because it would have just been gibberish. Secondly, I have no sympathy for people who have unsecured networks. In the end, it takes 20 seconds to set up a password to make certain that your wireless network is not publicly accessible. It's in your manual for your router or your modem, so in the end, if you can't do that, you're going to get people accessing your stuff. But Stephen Conroy's gone one step further. He's basically accusing Google of parking outside people's houses and stealing their information, which is absolute nonsense. So let's have a look at the facts. We've got a government trying to implement an ISP-level compulsory filter for the internet that isn't going to stop the issues that they've raised of being on the internet, such as child pornography, accessing terrorism information, and all that sort of stuff. So that's not going to work, but they're still going to go ahead with it. Google has openly opposed this plan, and suddenly they're getting accused by the Australian government of stealing people's information and all that sort of stuff. How convenient. This couldn't possibly have anything to do with the Australian government trying to attack one of its major detractors. Google has openly opposed the internet filter plan as proposed by the Australian government. They've even gone as far as to compare it to the censorship being used in China. Now, as far as I'm concerned, any kind of censorship is not great. I know there are certain things that should be kept from the public. That's just common sense. You shouldn't be able to purchase child pornography off the street. You shouldn't be able to access how to make bombs and things like that. That's just common sense. But there should be some kind of transparency. There should be multi-levels of accountability for who gets to decide what is and is not acceptable for public consumption. These are the kind of things that need to be put in place. But the major issue, beyond anything else, is that Australia already has ridiculously slow internet speeds. With the internet filter in place, it's actually going to make our internet speeds even slower. We are already one of the slowest internet speeds in the world, and now they're going to make it slower? That's just idiotic. So anyway, I'm going to end this now. I'd like to hear your opinions about the filter, about Stephen Conroy, about everything that I've just discussed in this video. Leave your comments below or make a video response, and I'll talk to you later.